I'm Sarah McGurr.
And I'm Jen Torres. We are from the Michigan Public Health Institute and are the state evaluators for Michigan Sexual Violence Prevention Program. We're here to talk to you today about harnessing the power of social media analytics to monitor and track your social media efforts. As you're watching this video, feel free to post your questions in the comments below. We will be answering them live from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on August 24th.
There are billions of social media users all over the world. As more people use Facebook and other social media sites, sexual violence prevention programs have been presented with a unique opportunity to reach a wide audience at any time of day with their messaging. We can respond to news stories related to our work, spread messaging quickly and widely, or even advertise agency resources and events.
Whatever goal you have in mind for your social media efforts, it is important that those activities are regularly tracked and evaluated in order to ensure that they are effective. During this presentation, we will demonstrate that evaluating your social media in a systematic way for the benefit of your program can be easily accomplished. Here is an outline of the steps we will be going over. Step 1, setting goals and developing objectives and activities. Step 2, picking indicators to evaluate those activities. Step 3, tracking those indicators over time. And Step 4, interpreting the evaluation findings.
So we hope that through this presentation, you will see the ease with which you can harness the power of your social media pages. You can also reference our article in the spring-summer issue of the resource put out by the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. So as we go over each step, we'll be using an example to walk through the process as if we are the staff at a made-up agency that's just beginning to evaluate our Facebook efforts. So while this example focuses specifically on Facebook, these concepts can really be applied to other social media platforms such as Twitter or Instagram. So here's the scenario we'll be using. Let's say we work for a sexual violence prevention agency, and we regularly host community events. We like to utilize high school student volunteers to help engage youth, but they often have other activities, so it's been hard to schedule them. So to help with this, our agency has decided to recruit more high school volunteers through a social media campaign that we're going to run on our Facebook page.
So let's get started. So step 1 is to set goals and develop objectives and activities. In order to begin your social media strategy, you want to start with your goals. And your goals should be focused. So something nebulous like get people to know our name is less meaningful if you don't have a reason in mind for wanting them to know your name. So think about what you want to get out of the goals you set. For example, do you want people to know your agency's name because you think it will get you more speaking opportunities at schools, or to have more venues to educate policymakers? Understanding the motivations behind the goals plays an important role in the process.
So at the agency in our scenario, our overreaching goal is to use our agency's Facebook page to recruit more youth volunteers. And that will be the focus that guides the rest of our evaluation.
So once you've decided on your goal, you need to translate your goal into objectives that you want to accomplish. So when developing objectives, it's important to ask yourself, is this a SMART objective? SMART is an acronym that's used to guide the development of objectives. And each one that you set up should be specific, meaning you're specifying things like who, when, and where. Measurable, meaning the objective uses things you can count or calculate, such as quantity, percentage, frequency, or themes and comments. Achievable, so the needed resources are available, there are people that can do it, and it can be done in a specified amount of time. Relevant, the objective will have an impact on your organization's mission, and there is a reason you are targeting this objective over another. And then finally, time-based. The objective will be met in a specified amount of time. So the big advantage of following the SMART acronym for setting your objectives is that they are clearly outlined and have an end point, keeping your evaluation on track and making sure you can track your progress.
So let's check in on our example agency. Applying this SMART concept, we have decided that our objective will be to recruit 5 high school youth to volunteer via Facebook by the end of our fiscal year. So here we can see we've specified the who, the when, and the how many. Secondly, we can measure an increase in the number of our volunteers. Third, we think that 5 new volunteers is an achievable goal to start with, based on our agency's capacity, and we can adjust that in future cycles if needed. Fourth, this objective is relevant because we rely heavily on high school volunteers to work at our events. And lastly, the objective is time-based because we've given ourselves until the end of the fiscal year to accomplish it.
So for each objective that you set, you will need to decide on what activities you will do to meet your objective. So how many posts do you want to make each week? Is the content targeted to a specific demographic? Do you plan to share news articles on a specific topic? Decide on a couple of activities that make sense for the objectives you have outlined.
So keeping our agency's objective in mind, our social media team, let's say, has decided to try 3 activities between now and the end of the fiscal year to help improve our youth recruitment. So we are going to first post 2 pictures and articles with teens contributing to sexual violence prevention every week. Secondly, we're going to encourage students to like our Facebook page when we give our presentations in high schools. And lastly, we are going to request that schools, student organization pages, our partners, and our fans share our recruitment-specific posts so we can reach a wider audience.
So once you've outlined your objectives and planned some activities to make them happen, it's time to move on to step 2 and select some indicators to track and evaluate your progress. So here's a framework we put together for selecting indicators for social media evaluation that's based on review of the literature. For more complete definitions of the indicators we outline, you can reference our article in the resource. The indicators available will depend on the social media platform you are using. So for example, Facebook Insights is a free social media analytics tool that can be accessed by anyone who has a Facebook page with at least 30 page likes, and it offers an array of indicators. So we will be using the ones on Facebook, but the concepts can be applied to other social media sites. So indicators can be broken out into 5 categories. So the first type of indicator is activity indicators. So the easiest thing to track on social media is your own activity. This includes things like the number of posts you made in a week or the number of events you promoted in a month. The next type of indicator is reach indicators. So something important to know about your social media activity is who you are reaching and how widely spread your messaging becomes. And reach indicators show the number of people who are seeing your content. So an example of a reach indicator would be the number of page likes or followers on your Facebook page. Other reach indicators include the total number of views a post has had, total likes on your page from a particular target audience, as well as the number of unique users that have seen your post. The next type of indicator is engagement indicators. So in addition to tracking your activity, you will also want to track your audience's activity. So how are your followers interacting with the content you posted? Some examples of engagement indicators include the number of likes or other reaction buttons that a post receives. Or you could compare the number of comments you receive on a shared articles versus a post with your own original content. The next type of indicator is influence indicators. So these tell you how your posts are being received by others. And the place to look for influence indicators is the comments people make on your posts. So there are a whole lot of ways to look at comments, but the main idea is to gauge whether you are getting the types of comments that you expected or hope to get or not. And then the last type of indicator is conversion indicators. So this is a measure of the real-world results of your social media activities, where users are converting their online actions into real-life participation. An example of this might be users donating to your cause or attending an event that they heard about through your page. It's important to note that not every objective will be converted into real-world action. Sometimes the goal is just to raise community awareness. You don't need to pick indicators from every category, just ones that make sense for your goals, objectives, and activities.
Now that we've detailed the different types of indicators, let's jump back to our example. Remember the activities we outlined? Well, the next thing we need to do is match some of the available indicators from Facebook Insights to those activities. So here are the indicators we selected. In order to measure if we're keeping up with our goal of 2 posts per week, we've decided to track the total number of posts with teens contributing to sexual violence prevention. Now this is a measure of what we did on our page, so it's an activity indicator. To see if our education staff in schools are doing a good job asking teens to like our page, we are going to be tracking the number of new fans, ages 13 to 17. This is tracking a characteristic of our audience, so it's considered a reach indicator. And finally, to see if our requests that our partners and supporters share our posts is working, we're going to track the number of shares of our recruitment-specific posts. Sharing posts is something that your followers actively do on your page, so this is considered an engagement indicator. Last but not least, we want to be able to see our progress on our overall objective, so we will keep track of the number of new high school volunteers that we recruit who said that they heard about us on Facebook. Since our objective is to get real-world participation from high school students in the form of volunteering, this is a conversion indicator.
So once you've picked the indicators for the activities you selected, you can move on to step 3, tracking them over time. So here is an example of a tracking sheet that you might put together in Word or Excel. In this template, we're tracking our activity and some indicators of reach, and we have set it up to be tracked once per week. So as we mentioned, the frequency with which you track your data will depend on the capacity your site has to dedicate to social media. Some indicators take a little more effort than others to track, and that will affect how long it takes. It's all about balancing what is going to be informative for your program with what you have the capacity to do. Whatever time frame and frequency you decide to collect data over, the most important thing is to be consistent. So set a specific recurring time to gather the data points you need, whether it's weekly, monthly, or quarterly.
So in our scenario, our evaluation plan has been outlined and now we're ready to track our data. So let's say that I've been assigned the role of social media manager and that there are 6 weeks between now and the end of our fiscal year. So each week, I will have 2 tasks. First, to make the 2 posts that are outlined in our activities every week. And secondly, on Fridays, to go into the Facebook Insights to gather the data and fill out the tracker. This takes me about 2 hours to do each week. So let's take a look at our results, row by row. So in row 1, it looks like I reached our goal of 2 posts per week for the first 2 weeks, but I forgot to post anything in week 3 and only made 1 post in week 4. So to make up, I made 3 postings in week 5 and met our goal of 2 in week 6. Looking across the weeks in row 2, we can see that we consistently gained new likes each week. However, the amount by which they increased varied. The smallest increase in fans occurred in week 3. Now this coincides with the week where no posting occurred, but may have also been a week where we had no education sessions planned in schools, for example. The largest increase took place in week 5. This coincides with the week we made the most posts and where we got the most shares by our partners. So speaking of shares, in row 3 we can see there were not very many that occurred during this time frame. 1 occurred during week 2 of our campaign and 2 during week 5. As with the increase in the number of fans, the most shares took place during the week with the most posting. And again, with the number of high school volunteers that we received that heard about us through Facebook, was also the highest during week 5. However, at the end of the fiscal year, our agency only managed to recruit 4 high school volunteers instead of the 5 that we had set as our goal.
Once you have collected your data over the specified time frame, you can move on to the 4th and final step, interpret and use the findings of your evaluation.
So as an agency, we need to ask ourselves some questions to interpret our results so that we can take meaningful actions moving forward with our social media efforts. So first we can ask, what might we want to do the same moving forward? The recurring theme that we're seeing in our tracking sheet is that posting about teens doing prevention work generally coincides with more high school age fans, more sharing of our recruitment posts, and more high school volunteers. So based on this, we should probably continue to be reliable with making our 2 posts every week, or even consider increasing that number to maybe 3 posts per week. We can also see that more shares also coincides with more high school age fans and volunteers. So we might want to continue to encourage our partners to share our posts. Next, we can ask ourselves, what might we do differently? Perhaps we might use reminder calls or emails to our partners' social media managers to ask them to share our posts. That might be a good idea. We might also consider making posts that highlight people from our partner agencies and even tagging them in the posts, or explicitly encouraging our supporters to share our pieces in the text that we post. We should also be more careful that we are posting frequently. So one possible solution is to utilize the scheduling feature in Facebook Insights. So when I go into Facebook Insights each week, when I update my tracking sheet, I could add the steps of pre-programming the posts for next week. That would streamline our agency's process and guarantee that at least 2 posts are making it to our page each week. Finally, perhaps we could create small cards with our social media information on them that we could hand out to teens in our classrooms that we visit in hopes that more of them will like our page. So last we can ask, what else might we track to understand our numbers better? So perhaps we could track the geographic location of our new page followers. That would help give us an idea of whether the new likes were coming from that week's school presentations or from other sources potentially. We might also consider tracking reactions to our posts to see which type of post might be more exciting for our fans. And that could guide our future content.
And there you have it. You've evaluated your social media campaign from start to finish. You have results, and you have some options for actions to take in the future. Evaluating your social media efforts can seem like a daunting, time-consuming task, but with careful planning and consistency, it can take relatively little time and be built into your agency's weekly tasks with ease. We hope that this presentation has been helpful to you and your agency, as well as informative. If you have questions regarding this topic and what we have presented, we will be available for questions using the comments below from 2 to 5 p.m. on August 24th. You could also reach us directly via email, and the address is provided in the comments. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
And make sure to check out our article in the resource.